I am Lisa Lord, and my special guest is an entrepreneur and advocate for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer plus community, Donnya Piggott, who prefers to be simply known as Z. Z, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
You're most welcome. Now, issues surrounding the LGBTQ plus community are somewhat sensitive for many Barbadians. However, those same Barbadians have a lot of questions, and I'm hoping that you can answer at least some of them this evening.
I'll try.
I wanted to start, however, with you and your journey. You like women.
Yes.
When would you say was the turning point for you to start living your truth?
Living my truth. I know, well, I grew up in the church. I was a member of the Black Rock Churches in Nazarene, and I had a good time there. They were very kind to me. But I started to negotiate with God. So around that time, I said, I recognized that I had feelings towards women, but I was a Christian. So I said to God, okay, well, I'll be a great Christian and I'll never be with a woman. So that was like the first negotiation. And then I met somebody and I was like, okay, well, I'd be a Christian and I'd only kiss women, I won't have a real girlfriend. And the negotiation went on, and then I just decided, you know what, I want to be comfortable. I want to be happy. And I accept that this is who I am. And I will always be a good person. I would always be a good person and always be good. And I would always favor my life around Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit. It was one of my favorite books of the Bible. And that was really my negotiation. I just went off, and I don't no longer identify as Christian. I certainly do identify as queer, or lesbian. Yeah. And that's when I really, embodied and took on who I am right now.
How old were you when you recognized you had feelings for women?
It would have been around 13, 12, 13. I realized that I had a crush on Destra. So, she had the song Max It Up, and she had a video, and I'd watch this video a lot. And my friend at the time, she said that somebody asked her if I identify as bisexual, if I could be bisexual. I was 12, 13. I didn't know what it meant. And I went into the dictionary, looked up the definition of bisexual, and I was like, wow, because by default, I always felt like, okay, everybody has to be attracted to the opposite sex. So then I would be also attracted to the same sex. So bisexual is how I identified around 12, 13. And I discovered it when I realized that I had a crush on Dexter from Max It Up, the video. So, yeah.
When you first came out to those closest to you, family, friends, what was the response like?
So that would have been at Queen's College. The first person I would have told was that same friend. Because she asked me the question, and then it was like, it was this bulb in my head. And it was like, yeah, that's how I've been feeling towards Destra. And then I think I told another friend, it just felt like a light bulb, like when you know something, and then you're like, that's me, that's how I feel. And that friend, I would write her poems, and I was just a really, really close best friend. That was it was a little weird, writing poems and writing songs for her and thinking about all these elaborate gifts and stuff. And it was a crush. It was a crush. And it was only until I learned more that I started to realize that. Yeah.
But then how did your family react?
Not good. Not good. I want to say my mother and I have a very good relationship now. We came a long, long way. But she didn't react very good at all. It was quite horrible, to be frank. My father was a little indifferent. He's often indifferent. But my mother was not having it. She was not having it. She found out through like my first girlfriend at like 16, it just went sour, and I don't know, she called my parents and told them that I was bisexual, and my mother didn't, and I was banned that summer. I couldn't go outside, and it was just not good. It was horrible, in fact.
No, you mentioned bisexual.
Mhm.
You did have feelings for males at some point.
I think you always grow up thinking that
This is how it's supposed to be.
yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. I had a boyfriend in first form at QC. Um, yeah, I think so. It much didn't come of it, but I think in navigating my own sexuality, just like everybody else, there might be a boy group that, like, B2K was big back then, and everybody chose like one of the boys in B2K to be attracted to, and I chose one to fit in. I think it was Rasby or somebody.
Mine was
like
Omarion. Yeah.
yeah. I think most straight women was Omarion, right? But yeah, I think mine was Rasby or something. So there was that, but there was an element of trying to fit in. I think in navigating my life, I think men, I don't know, my ideas around men are that they need love, not necessarily, and I could find a man attractive, but it was more like an attractive, like, oh, I want to be like that, I want to. It's more of an attractive, not that I'm sexually attracted to them, but it's that I want to look like that also, or I want to kind of embody that a little bit. Um, and I don't hate men. Yeah, I have various feelings about men. I think they need more love and softness. And I think society needs to allow men to be softer without having to defend their masculinity.
Label them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you did a lot of negotiating with God.
Yeah.
You didn't think that you could still be Christian?
No, there was no place for it then. I don't know if there's even a place for it now in Barbados. I think my belief system has evolved since then. So I wouldn't necessarily. I think there are parts of the Bible, like how Christian pick part of the Bible to believe in. I have my parts of the Bible that I believe in, like Galatians, like I mentioned. I like Galatians. It's one part of the Bible that I kind of took with me when I left. The fruits of the Spirit.
Right.
I made that negotiation, and I just always want to be a good person, be kind, be patient, and be loving. And I think those things embody a good person. I think Galatians and Corinthians as well, kind of outlines that really, really well. So that's the part of the Bible that I took. Yeah.
You identify as non-binary.
Yeah.
And this is where things start to get confusing for many people, including
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
much reading as I have done. So I'm speaking to some person who's non-binary. Explain what it means.
So I think for us, and I guess really the world, gender is often seen as these two separate I guess entities, for lack of a better term, and a woman must behave one way and a man must behave another way. A woman wears dresses and presents themselves in a certain way and do certain things, and nails and all of these things that embody gender, which is it's almost like drag. It's from RuPaul. You're born naked and the rest is drag, and the rest is gender. You're born naked and the rest is gender. So you put on everything else. So they categorize based on these two things. Now, as somebody who, feels more comfortable wearing, shirts like these, pants, and, choosing my clothing from, the male section of the store, as well as still embodying a lot of feminine characteristics, I don't feel comfortable in either being defined by either gender and both at the same time. but still want to identify as both. So that's where non-binary comes in. So we feel like gender is a spectrum. There's feminine all the way over here. There's masculine all the way over here. And so I fall somewhere in the middle, you know, and I think most people fall somewhere on the spectrum. Some people are very, very feminine on one end. Some people are very, very masculine, and those people can be born anyway. They could be of any biological sex, but how they present themselves can be anywhere on the spectrum, and how they identify is their choice. They're on the spectrum, it's their choice. Then they identify as a woman or a man, and I identify as non-binary, but at the same time both. And I know, does that add any clarity to you?
No, it does
None
not.
at all.
No. So let's go again.
Let me go again. Okay, cool. So we're okay.
You go ahead.
Okay, cool. So we're on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, it's a line.
No, I understood what you were saying.
Okay.
The part is that the point that you were making that had me a little confused was that you identify as both.
Okay.
That is the part I don't understand.
Okay. So non-binary is a combination, well, at least my definition of non-binary. And I think there's a level of autonomy that comes in that I think the LGBT community has embodied, that I think it doesn't necessarily have to be only for the LGBT community, but because it's kind of outside of the norm, is that we determine who we are for ourselves. And I guess sometimes people don't always understand it, but it's just for people to respect it and to...
But in order for people to respect it, sometimes they need to understand. Let's go to the subject of the pronouns.
Okay, cool.
I remember when I first called you to ask you to do the interview.
Right.
I expressed then that I wanted you to understand that if I missed and said ma'am or miss, I'm not being insensitive.
Of
but this
course.
is a learning curve for me as well.
I understand that.
That being said, I'm sitting in front of you and I'm seeing a woman. It is natural for me to want to say she, her.
Yeah.
And you identify as her, she, him, he, they.
Yeah.
That is confusing.
Well, if I do identify and I take on the pronouns of all of these, then you can just call me she, and that's fine. That's within the parameters of how I want to identify. So it wouldn't be confusing. It would be just you saying she.
Yeah, but we're mixing in all of the other pronouns as well.
Well, because I identify and I use the pronouns interchangeably, but at the same time, I feel as though that I am both she, and I do think that all human beings have an element of masculinity and femininity a part of them, and I guess what I'm doing is really taking on all of them, but at the same time not excluding any. So if you if you want to use the she her pronouns, that is exactly how I identify. I am a woman. I do embody levels of masculinity, so sometimes I do feel masculine too, and I think a large part of gender overall it would be confusing because we are so accustomed to the binary. We're accustomed to either or. Even in our arguments around anything, it's that this has happened but this should happen. But in many cases, these two things can exist at the same time. But the binary helps our brain to understand things very simple. It's either one or two. It's either X or O. It's either black or white. And we know that things are nuanced and there's spectrum and they're mixed up and there's so many things in between. And if we just take the time to sit down and recognize that two things can exist at the same time, I think it will make the world a easier place to live in if we see things that way.
Do you understand though why it could be confusing to the average person?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're accustomed to, man and woman, male and female, and this is something that we've been taught forever. So undoing that will be hard. Absolutely.
My question to that would be, do we need to undo it?
I think once somebody, if you're Lisa Lord, Lisa says, hey, I'm no longer Lisa Lord. My name is Atunde. I have traveled and I figured out that, you know, my last name is not something that I want to be associated with anymore. And I want to use Atunde as my name now because of this enlightenment I have. Atunde is what I will call you. And it's really that simple. It's just respecting people's wishes. Or if somebody was married and they no longer take the last name of their ex-husband and they want to be whoever. I'm no longer Williams, I'm now Bishop. Exactly. So it's just really respecting people's way to identify themselves. That's all. And we do it in different ways, whether it's through marriage or if people are more comfortable being taking on a more Afrocentric name for historical and colonial reasons. You take on different identities as you continue to grow and, you know, move throughout the world.
As an advocate for members of the LGBTQ plus community, do you receive reports of violence towards these persons?
Yes, I used to, not anymore, because I've kind of shifted the way I do advocacy, but certainly yes, there would have been a lot in my days at Be Glad. I think a lot of the homophobia that exists in Barbados, you know, exists because of lack of understanding and education, lack of exposure, fear, um, and insecurity. So, and there are various reasons, or religion, and all these things, you know, play a part. And I think anything that goes against the status quo is scary for people. Change overall is scary for people. We're very comfortable in the way that we are. We we like to be comfortable, and we like to, you know, keep things the same, because anything outside of that is discomfort. So there's a lot of fear that comes up. But homophobia manifests itself in different ways for different reasons, many of which I can list. But
Please.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most common forms would be the threat to masculinity and the patriarchy. Men have been told for centuries that they must be brave, strong, big, bold,
Not crying.
controlling. All of these things are things that are attributed to masculinity. A young boy or even a trans woman who might take on some kind of feminine qualities and portray them becomes a threat to the, you know, the masculine structure. And so any kind of hypermasculine person feels the need to protect that masculinity and push that away, denounce it, you know, hurl abusive comments towards people, towards young people, especially, or feminine men, to assert that masculinity. So that's one of the most common ways. A young boy walking down the street, they might be walking across a block, somebody's gonna hurl some verbal abuse, maybe a rock, that kind of thing would happen, you know, especially in spaces where people are not understanding, people are not very educated or exposed. So that's some of the most common forms. Then there's within the family. You know, the same thing can happen with a father and a son, you know, in a family structure, or a Christian mother or a Christian family, where this is the norm and this is what we want for our household. By doing X, Y, and Z, you are breaking the norm. This is not what we want for this family. You need to leave, you need to stop, you need to, it's just about control. It's about, you know, structure and what, you know, households want. What I do think though is that we need to, I think we just need to be more open-minded and patient with each other, and question our own reactions. I think more Barbadians need to be self-aware. But a lot of that comes with education. A lot of that comes with education and knowing our own, personal triggers. It's a lot of personal development that comes with it, really.
On the topic of homophobia, do you think that many Barbadians are homophobic?
I actually don't think so, I think Barbadians are fairly exposed. I think, and this is thanks to the education system that we have in Barbados, and this is obviously comparative to other Caribbean islands, in my opinion. Barbadians tend to be more educated, tend to be more exposed. The average working class family in Barbados could travel to New York at least twice a year, or Canada. Might do a lot of shopping and that kind of thing. But there's a level of exposure, so you go and you see things that you might not see at home. You see people that you might not see at home. You have access to cable, the internet as a country. You see things that you might not see at home. So I think that we are becoming a lot more tolerant as a people because we're more exposed. We recognize that the people that live in your household or at your church or at your school are not the only people who live on this earth, and once we recognize that, then we recognize, okay, there's so many different people out there. How can we be more tolerant to, the spectrum of people that exist in the world? So I think Barbadians are fairly inclusive. Because you know why I think so? I think so because people come up to me all the time and say, yo, Barbadians, these people so homophobic. Listen, but so many people come up saying the same thing, and even man, I was getting my car tinted the other day. The guy who's doing the tinting, he was like, I am really worried about people, some other people. So it's like this, homophobic people exist. Don't get me wrong, they exist in Barbados. But everybody thinks that everybody else is so homophobic.
I understand.
So whether it's the minivan, who say, look, listen, if they do the thing, let it do the thing. There's different levels of acceptance. Some people might say, yeah, let them get married if they want to get married. Some other people will say, just leave them. Let people do the thing. There are different levels. But I really feel Barbadians are fairly inclusive. I think we've come a long way.
So since you're saying that we're a very inclusive society, we are very tolerant, are more people then inclined to live their truth?
Yes, I think so. And we're relatively inclusive. And I'm comparing us to the rest of the Caribbean and comparing us to some parts of like the continent and so on, continent meaning Africa. So I think Barbados, is inclusive in that way. Yes, because it makes people feel more comfortable. If more people are out, I think that's why visibility is so important. And we see people in media, in music, who are just, living their life in fashion, who are living their lives authentically. Might not be as loud, but it's often obvious people would, put their partners or, say something on social media and that kind of thing. Social media has really been a platform for people to show their visibility and who they really are. So when people see that, then people are more likely to come out because, okay, well, there are other people who are out and they're living their lives. They're doing things. They're not, deprived and completely out of it. So I can do it too. So yeah, I think once people are more visible, then it gives people courage to be themselves. And then you'll have a whole lot less people, hiding. And I think that's good for everybody.
Okay. Well, what's good for us right now is to take a short break. Stay with us. You're watching One on One.
The Barbados Police Service is a dynamic organization which caters to the needs of all residents by providing excellent customer service within our communities. We are excited to inform you that we are recruiting new members to our ranks and welcome your participation.
We are building the Barbados Police Service within our communities. Are you smart, skillful, motivated, ambitious, reliable, and talented?
Smart to fulfill your life's dream.
Smart to chart career opportunities.
Smart to make a difference. Smart to pursue economic sustainability.
Smart to enable change.
Smart to provide public service.
I say to you today, if you have a love for people, if you enjoy nurturing your communities and taking care of persons, then definitely the Barbados Police Service, of which I am a proud member, is the place for you. So I encourage you, lend us a hand, join us now to help keep Barbados safe.
Come join us, join me in making our country a safer Barbados.
Your place is here in the Barbados Police Service.
Come, join our ranks and chart a career of economic sustainability. Make that difference as an agent of change while providing public service as you fulfill your life's dream.
Barbadians, we invite you to get involved and play your part as we clean and green Barbados. Coming to your community with media launches, bulk waste collection exercises, community engagement sessions, and giveaways. Get on board. Let's keep Barbados clean and green.
Beautiful, beautiful Barbados.
When does a mental health issue become a problem? When should you reach out for help? I'm Krisnan Hurdle, clinical psychologist and certified life coach. Mental health issues interrupt a person's daily functions. An issue becomes a disorder when a person isn't able to carry out their everyday activities like household duties, personal upkeep and hygiene, or interferes with their ability to function socially, to interact with others inside the household, or interferes with their ability to function on the job or carry out other activities. If a person finds themselves needing to self-isolate, losing touch with reality, or having an impaired ability to think, reason, or function, and if this occurs over a period of days, weeks, or months, then it is time that they reach out for help.
Hi, I'm Dr. Adana Grandison, and I'm here to give you a few tips on how to accurately and safely take your blood pressure readings at home. Before taking your measurement, sit in a calm, warm environment. Don't perform any exercise in the preceding 1 hour. No coffee, food, smoking, or even sinus medication in the preceding hour to taking that blood pressure reading. Empty your bladder and bowel. Most readings that are taken at home should be below or at 135 on 85 millimeters of mercury for uncomplicated hypertension. Lower home blood pressure targets might be advisable in persons who have the following conditions: diabetes, chronic renal disease, or coronary heart disease. If several readings are above 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury, make an appointment with your physician immediately. Ensure to take your readings at the same time every day. We advise 2 readings in the morning and 2 readings in the evening, initially to profile yourself, taken 1 to 2 minutes apart. However, once you have established a baseline, you can choose a time suitable to your schedule where you can monitor your blood pressure readings.
Welcome back. We're chatting with entrepreneur and LGBTQ plus advocate Donnya Piggott, who now prefers to be simply known as Z. Z, before the break, we were looking at how inclusive Barbados is as a society.
Yeah.
Now, last December, the High Court in Barbados struck down the country's colonial-era gross indecency and buggery laws, which had criminalized consensual same-sex relations. This was obviously seen as a win for the LGBTQ plus community, but for heterosexual persons who do not support these lifestyles, it was seen as a step backwards.
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful for the community. I think it's awful that the law still exists in the new Republic of Barbados, but I think as we, determine what Barbados is today, it needs to go along with a lot of other antiquated laws. But as it relates to that one in particular, that really protects heterosexual people too, because it criminalizes a sexual act in the bedroom. And it's simple that the government should not be controlling what people do in their bedrooms. And it's really as simple as that.
Do you think we are a hypocritical society, having said that?
Hypocritical. I think there's some people who believe, I don't think the Barbadian society is a monolith. It's not homogenous. We don't all believe the same things. We have different beliefs and we come from different backgrounds and I mean, there's a common Barbadian culture that's a thread throughout most people, but I think there are different values that different people have. So there might be people who don't believe in the LGBTQ existence, on a whole. But then there are others who are indifferent and people who are very passionate about it, who are allies. And those exist too. So I know people, especially members of the Christian community, kind of pick and choose. So in that way, it's hypocritical to then feel like this thing is so horrible, and then there are other things that they pay no attention to. So in terms of that, I would definitely say that, one thing that is really, really, really important to me, and I think needs to be on the top of the priorities for anybody in the social space is when it comes to like child abuse, and we don't do enough about it. And I don't see, the church, doing enough about it at the same time. I don't think it's all up to the church either, I've taken up my cause, but wherever I can, I would try to, do what I can, whether it's advising somebody who might need advising, because child abuse is rampant in Barbados, and we are not nearly as passionate about that. And I think we need to be. So in that way, I guess we're hypocritical in some ways, yeah.
There is the belief that the LGBTQ plus community is pushing its agenda and forcing people to accept their particular lifestyles. Do you understand this perspective, and what is your take on it?
I understand advocacy. If I'm not feeling included in a space where I live, I will fight to be included. And I will fight to show people how I've been excluded over the years, how exclusion then contributes to negative impacts to society, how it contributes to mental health issues, how it contributes to homelessness, how it contributes to a decline in the economy, how it contributes to perception. And I'll advocate so that I'm included. If the women's rights movement has done it for years, and in spaces that might not be majority Black and Black people don't feel included, they don't feel heard, then you advocate. So I don't think the LGBT community is doing anything different.
Why are LGBTQ plus issues so critical to a growing society like Barbados?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think to any growing community, any growing society, or even as small as a team, inclusion is important. If you have 5 people who exist on a team and only 4 people are contributing, or only 3 people are contributing, what you're getting is that whatever outcome that team brings forth is only limited. In order for Barbados to continue to grow, everybody must be included. And so, I mean, I want to commend the government on what they're doing with the members of the disabled community, people live with disabilities. You know, feeling included is important, but also, you know, contributing to whatever growth the country has. And I think LGBT people are exactly the same. If we continue to leave Barbados, there's a lot of us are leaving. A lot of us are leaving the country. Then you'll see that brain drain, and all of the talents and the creativity and the skills will continue to leave the island. And not only that, there are allies who don't feel comfortable in a place where, you know, everybody isn't included. If I go to a place and I feel like Muslim people are completely disenfranchised, it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable to see one set of people just being disenfranchised all the time. And I think it's important that everybody is included in order to have economic growth, social growth, and social cohesion, and to take Barbados forward.
But why are members of the community leaving if we are such a tolerant and inclusive society?
Because, well, this when I say tolerant and inclusive, I mean in terms of the people. I think the people are fairly tolerant and inclusive. And again, I'm saying comparatively. Barbados does not have any laws to encourage people to build families here. I'm 32 now. I'm getting older. I want to build a family. I want to, you know, might get a mortgage. You know, what does the legal landscape look like for, you know, a young Barbadian queer family? It doesn't look very good. It's not very attractive. Apart from that, what then is a trickle-down effect is that if we're not an inclusive space, then we're not attractive to investors and people who are, you know, building companies and so on. And so even the job opportunities then are affected because, you know, it's just too stagnant as a country. So people are leaving because in places like Canada or the United States, you can build a family. And after a certain age, you want to look forward to, you know, having a home, and the legal situation doesn't lend to that at all. So for queer people, it's a difficult one to navigate.
So just to be clear, persons are leaving for opportunities, not out of fear.
Yeah.
Because there is that perception.
That they're leaving out
of fear.
Well, I think there are specific situations, yes. Yeah, where you can leave out of fear. People leave for various reasons. Fear is definitely one of them. People have specific issues within their families if they're not accepted within the family, if they're not accepted within the church. Finding your place in a small society that is homogenous is difficult. So people can leave of fear, but I think majority people are leaving, even outside the LGBT community, for more opportunities.
Now, you are Caribbean campaign lead at Open for Business, which makes the business and economic case for inclusion. What does that mean?
Okay.
What is this business?
Okay, so Open for Business is a coalition of about 43 global companies, and these companies recognize that places that are more inclusive with the LGBT community, and this is based on tons and tons of data, see more economic growth. Simple as that. You know, much like what I said before, when a country is including everybody, then there's more growth. Much like a small team, if everybody is pitching in on the team, you're going to probably do a lot better than if only 2 or 3 people are pitching in on the team. So we recognize that it's good for economic growth, it's good for the business, and it's good for society. So, you know, many companies are involved. Some most notably are, I guess, like Version, LinkedIn, Microsoft, a few others, a long list, PwC, a long list of, you know, global companies recognize that, you know, in order for a country to grow, in order for businesses to grow, everybody needs to be included, including LGBT people.
And as we're talking about business, you started the company Pink Coconuts with your late partner T, which looks at creating more pleasant traveling experiences for the LGBTQ plus community. Tell me about that.
So Pink Coconuts, it's been a really long journey with Pink Coconuts. We launched in March of 2020.
During the pandemic?
2 weeks before the pandemic, Lisa. It's still something that kind of, it's like a soft spot for me because it was 2 weeks. It's a travel company to launch a budding travel company 2 weeks before the pandemic, and then just everything just, went downhill from there. But the opportunity we got was to, do some traveling and meeting a lot of people. And the idea of Pink Coconuts is really to find these places all across the Caribbean and in parts of Africa where LGBT people can thrive. Because queer people generally stay away from places that are not seen or have bad reputations with the LGBT community. And what that means is that we're losing a large part of a tourism chunk.
And you've gone on record as saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. LGBT people, because as a block, we have less children, then we have a more disposable income. Less children means more time, more money, more time and money
I understand.
equals travel. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we continue to lose a lot. And so Pink Coconuts is trying to carve out this spot where, we have hoteliers and small businesses who cater to travelers, and want to cater to the LGBT community as well. So don't stay away, come and support local businesses, support these people who support you, and so you get to see a lot more of the world that way.
What has the response been like to Pink Coconuts and what you're trying to do?
It's been good. Again, we started in the pandemic, so it was really, really a struggle for a very, very long time, just changing the business model, trying to suit the pandemic. And then you kind of try to do stuff to suit the pandemic. And then after the pandemic has passed, then you realize, okay, well, it has changed again. So it has been a real up and down. We brought quite a few people to Barbados, Jamaica, Puerto Rico. But what we found is that apart from LGBT friendly businesses, people want to connect with each other. So that's the point where we're at. We're just continuing to learn what the traveler wants. But this came out of people just inboxing me constantly. Hey, I'm in Barbados. Could you tell me where is best to go for queer people? Hey, I'm in Puerto Rico. Hey, I'm in Ghana. People from all over the world just continue messaging me, wanting to know where best they can go in Barbados and across the world. And so because I have a lot of contacts all over, I would always refer them. Hey, this person is here to help them out. This person is here to help. And I kept doing that for a long time. And I was like, okay, there's a business here. And so I began to explore that. And I'm still exploring that, but we're relaunching on the 3rd of April, my birthday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where the new Pink Coconuts goes again. Yeah, it's been a real journey.
And speaking of the journey, what is your take on the global situation regarding the LGBTQ community at present?
It's really bleak, Lisa. It's and it's really interesting. I haven't really sat to really think about where the anti-wave is coming from, what has stemmed it, but I guess the pendulum swings. I know in particular Uganda has just enacted this horrible anti-gay bill, and it might be passed where you can't even identify as LGBT. In Ghana, another one. Thankfully, I think the Caribbean is pretty stable, and we're hoping to see some small changes. We had some wins in Barbados and in St. Kitts and Antigua and so on. In the United States, it's getting pretty bad, especially for trans people and for people who perform drag. So there's this pendulum that is swinging in the opposite way. And again, LGBT rights, and women's rights are quite, very parallel sometimes. So when you see this abortion ban happening, you kind of see all these things happening, and it's really taken away people's freedom just to be themselves and to, look after their own bodies and their own health. But I think it's always a form of control that is happening. And I just hope that Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean continues to move forward and continues to include all people. And I know I speak a lot about the LGBT community, and that's kind of been my life's work. but that means, that means single women, that means people living with disabilities, that means people who look a little different from you. And that's the only way where we will continue to thrive, if we continue to work together. And it's just as simple as that. It's as simple as working together to achieve something, a common goal, which is, social and economic cohesion and prosperity for all.
What are we doing right in Barbados versus what are we doing wrong when it comes to this community?
Well, I'm glad that the law has been struck down, although that was by court case. So are we really doing it? Yeah, it's happened. So that's a good thing. I think we need to, I guess, continue to include LGBT people. I think let me just speak from the LGBT community as well, because I don't, as an advocate, sometimes you say you have to do this, you should do this, you should do that. But I think the onus is also on us to be better too. Even if I begin to talk from an advocacy perspective, I think we need to be more patient with people, and their learning process. I've been called a kumbaya advocate because I'm a little softer, you know. But I do believe that we need to, help people along, because it's so different. Any kind of change is hard. So for the community, I think we need to do that. I think more public education needs to happen. From the side of the government, they have a difficult task, because I can't pretend that I don't understand that they want to pander to everyone. But by doing that, there's certain values that you just have to stick to regardless, of who does what. And I think the evangelical community and a large part of the Christian community can, be loud about anti-gay and that kind of thing. I think so. We need to just do a large part of public education. I think the government can do more in that regard, and I recognize they're doing a lot with people living with disabilities, and I commend that work a lot. Lisa, I have a lot of opinions on how, not just the LGBT community in a microcosm, because we exist in a larger society.
Of course.
So I feel one thing that as a society we're doing wrong, in my opinion, is that we're letting this divide happen. So there's a divide where Barbados is, a lot of money is coming into Barbados, but it's going in one direction. How do we then create a more cohesive society? There's going to be an economic divide. And when there's an economic divide, then you have people, LGBT people living with disabilities, single mothers, and all of these people are going to be affected when you have an economic divide. So how, and this is something for our government, how do we then create a more equitable Barbados where everybody can benefit from this pot that is coming in? And I think that will be the real question that divides Barbados.
So, in your opinion,
Yeah.
members of the community are still being discriminated against?
Yeah, certainly. From a legal perspective, if I want to start my family, I have no idea how I'm gonna get a mortgage with my girlfriend. Or I guess, well, the question would then be marriage, and that's not an option for me. So it's then I either try to immigrate to Canada or United States or something and make that happen, and then you lose her skills, you lose my skills. So there's that, legally. And then obviously in homes, like I mentioned before, in the home, if people don't feel included, they're gonna leave, and there's mental health issues that come out of that. There's homelessness that comes out of that. There's substance abuse. All of these things are things that will affect, and it affects Barbados as a whole. It's not just LGBT community over here. We're all a part of this Barbados that we have here. And yeah, we need to do more to include everyone. I think I've said that many times already. Yeah.
Well, and this is how the conversation starts,
Yeah.
by doing programs like these. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah.
Happy birthday in advance tomorrow.
Yeah.
Really, really appreciate you taking
Thank you.
the time and being so open and transparent about something you feel so passionate about.
I appreciate you, Lisa.
You're most welcome. That was entrepreneur and LGBTQ plus community advocate Donnya Piggott, who now goes simply by the name Z. I am Lisa Lord. You are watching One on One. Do have yourself a wonderful evening.